It's been nearly 10 years since Donald Trump descended that golden Manhattan escalator, and in the decades since, he's maintained what can only be described as a black hole-esque gravitational pull on the Republican Party, on American media, and perhaps most importantly, on the American psyche. And for nearly as long, I've been grappling with this deceptively simple but frustratingly complex question: why? Why does this man, who so many find offensive, chaotic, and dangerous, command such unwavering loyalty from so many? And this isn't just a thought experiment for me. It's not purely academic. I come from a politically mixed and divergent family. Half of them are devout Trump supporters, and that's made for some, let's call them, lively holiday gatherings. But it's also forced me to take this question seriously, not just politically, but personally, because I want to understand, not caricature the people in my life, the people I share my community with, and the people I love. I think it's important to grapple with this question of why. It's easy, and I would even say weak or lazy, to dismiss Trump supporters as merely misguided or misinformed. I would deprive myself of growth and an ability to understand if I were to simply dismiss out of hand one of the most notable political movements in modern American history. And for me, with family members on that side of the aisle, I would handicap my ability to connect with my loved ones and to understand their real feelings, fears, and frustrations. And if I'm going to count myself as a true supporter of democracy in America, I have to try to understand. We have to try to understand, especially when it's difficult. So, why Trump? Here are some of the reasons I've found as the basis for supporting Trump. The longing for a lost America. Let's begin with the hat. Make America great again. To some, a forward eye roll. To others, a battle cry. The slogan taps into a powerful psychological aspect humans have: nostalgia. A longing for a time, real or imagined, when things made sense, when life felt stable, when America, as they remember it, was strong, prosperous, and proud. It's worth noting this wasn't even Trump's phrase originally, though. Ronald Reagan used it in 1980.
That's why I'm running for president.
Only one man has the proven experience we need: Ronald Reagan for president. Let's make America great again.
Even in the 80s, Americans were nostalgic for the 50s, the 30s, the Garden of Eden. But nostalgia isn't about accuracy. It's about loss. When you ask Trump supporters what MAGA means, you'll often hear of things they perceive have been lost: a stable job with decent pay, a home you can afford, a future you can believe in, a sense of dignity in everyday life. And there's some real truth there. Over the past few decades, manufacturing jobs have withered, wages have stagnated, the cost of housing, healthcare, and education have soared, and economic inequality has ballooned. According to Pew Research in a study released in 2020, so even before the pandemic, the income gaps were growing between upper income and middle and lower income households, with the share held by middle income households falling. The same goes for gaps in wealth between upper income and middle and lower income families. Perhaps most interestingly, since the Great Recession of 2008, the richest families are the only group to have gained wealth. So when Trump says, "I alone can fix it," he's not offering a policy plan. He's offering a return, a restoration, the idea that someone will fight for people who feel like the world has moved on without them. The comfort of simplicity and belonging. Here's another force behind Trump: the desire to feel at home in the world. In a time of rapid and cultural and technological change, Trump offers something many crave: simplicity. I've particularly seen it in older family members of mine. The world is more complex than ever. Gender identities, climate threats, global pandemics, AI hijacking jobs, and our selfies. It's a lot, especially for older Americans or for anyone who feels left behind by the pace of change. this complexity can feel overwhelming. Now, whether the world was in fact more simple or not in years past, Trump leans into this. He doesn't do nuance or recognize complex countervailing facts, which, for all the error and mistakes that causes, it's unquestionably served him politically. He doesn't hedge. He doesn't qualify. He simplifies. And to many of us, this is maddening, but to others, it's comforting. Trump offers the illusion of certainty, and certainty, even when wrong, is psychologically reassuring. A recent 2025 article authored by Dr. Jason Shamaye touches directly on this point. I'll post a link in the description below, but the article discusses the psychological process of splitting, a defense mechanism that makes complex realities feel simple, clear, and emotionally manageable. However, it comes at a cost by fracturing our empathy, distorting truth, and leaving us vulnerable to manipulation. This preference for simplification also dovetails with another strong psychological desire, a sense of belonging, a feeling many Trump supporters have felt eroded over the years. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General released data showing dramatic increases in loneliness and social disconnection. This sense of cultural alienation, it isn't abstract, it's measurable. And Trump, with his loud certainty and familiar grievances, makes people feel like they're not alone. He tells them, "You're right. They changed the rules. I alone see you." Now, that emotional connection, however manipulative or opportunistic it may be, is powerful. Now, speaking of emotional resonance, that leads into the next point: the politics of entertainment. Perhaps first and foremost, Donald Trump is a showman. He's part Sylvester Stallone, part WWE, part stand-up comic who somehow managed to turn grievance into a performance art. Trump doesn't treat politics like governance. He treats it like content. Nearly every speech, every tweet, every complaint is another episode in the Trump cinematic universe. And for millions of Americans who feel disengaged from dry policy debates and abstract institutions, which serve critical purposes, Trump swipes all that aside and makes politics entertaining. He takes government, which in large part should rest on debating complex issues and discerning intelligent policy solutions, and turns it into an entertaining season of The Apprentice. And his ratings, the way in which he's been able to dominate media coverage, is no small part of his political success. But it's not just entertainment, it's also persona. Trump projects confidence, masculine bravado, a kind of devil-may-care, offensive and combative energy that resonates with people who feel they've been talked down to and patronized over the years. He contradicts himself freely. He lies without apology. He's unshackled from shame or self-doubt. As Ezra Klein put it, Trump is unhindered by the normal inhibiting human emotions of shame, decency, and respect. Or as Sam Harris put it, he plays tennis without the net, and his fans love him for it. And that makes him compelling. He breaks the rules and not only survives, but thrives. That kind of audacity is magnetic, especially to those who feel powerless. The outsider myth and the appeal of the wrecking ball. Despite spending 4 years in the White House and being the face of the Republican Party for nearly a decade, Trump still markets himself as an outsider, a swamp drainer, a system breaker. And there's a bit of marketing brilliance to that. To succeed, Trump doesn't actually have to fix anything. He just has to fight everything. The government, the media, the courts, the perceived deep state. He's Dirty Harry with a Twitter account. The rogue who will say what no one else will. Punch who no one else will punch. Tear down what no one else will touch. There are aspects of this that aren't entirely new to American politics either. We've long romanticized the anti-hero, the lone ranger who rides into town and refuses to play by the rules. He's like Andrew Jackson with a smartphone. And yet, it's a strange paradox how Trump's appeal as a disruptor increasingly depends on our system of government continuing to function well enough to push back on his destruction. He campaigns against a government that, in some ways miraculously, still has the strength to withstand his worst impulses, the stability to hold fair elections, and the civility to nonetheless let him back on the debate stage. It's a strange codependence. Trump needs the very system he claims to despise. Its demolition is ideology, the political manifestation of the saying, nobody can turn away from a train wreck. The problem, of course, is that governing by demolition tends not to end well. When you elect a wrecking ball, you get wreckage. And increasingly that includes democratic norms, international alliances, and a basic understanding of truth. But for many, the fight itself is the point. It's not about policy. It's about identity. It's about being seen. And it's about the carnal joy of watching someone get punched in the face. So how do we respond? And where does that leave us? If you care about truth, if you care about democratic norms, about reason and compassion, you have to resist the temptation to write people off. Not everyone who supports Trump is motivated by cruelty or ignorance. Many are motivated by fear, by loss, by pride, by desire to belong. Start there. Recognize the emotions, acknowledge them, and from there, build from shared values and shared experiences. Truth doesn't necessarily win because it's louder. It wins because it's human, because it connects. As Ezra Klein points out in his book, Why We're Polarized, facts rarely change minds. What changes minds is identity, community, the sense that someone is listening. So be the person who listens. Be the person who, even when you strongly disagree, resolves to still care. As said by Abraham Lincoln, the man who led us through one of our country's most contentious times, if you would win a man to your cause, first convince him that you are his sincere friend. Therein is a drop of honey that catches his heart, which, say what he will, is the great high road to his reason. To be sure, we can still name what's true. We can still reject cruelty. We can still fight for democracy. And we can still do all of that while believing that compassion is a form of strength, not surrender. Because that's what this moment demands. Not just better arguments, but better invitations, better listening, and better compassionate hearts. Because what comes next depends not just on who wins, but on how we choose to live together. Whether we're willing to stay in conversation, whether we can speak with both courage and kindness, whether we believe, even now, in the radical possibility of grace. That's all I have for now, but take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.